So we have all struggled sometimes with decision making. That means that we have way too many variables, way too many companies, way too many stocks, and way too many opinions in our head in order to actually make a good decision. Well, that happens for a few reasons, but one of the most important ones are the fact that our brains are not very good at making very long rational decisions. Why does this happen? Well, if we look back into the history, we can see that when we were basically living in the caves and had to run away from the animals, our decision making need to be really, really quick. We couldn't afford to spend an entire day making a simple decision whether to stay in the cave or go out. We had to make very quick, very fast decisions. So since our decisions could not take that much time, we actually needed to have some kind of a system in order for us to break the 50-50 type of decisions. So our emotions serve exactly for that purpose. They break the 50-50 equation in type of weight that we have going on. So for example, if we have some very quick decision to make and it's 50-50, instead of wondering, our emotions kick in and we basically choose this thing that is most favorable to us, or at least that we feel the best about. This actually isn't that bad. If we, for example, are a specialist and we have seen that pattern repeat all over again countless times, then these quick time decisions aren't actually that bad. They actually know already that pattern and they basically make the best decision for us without us really using our rational brain or our conscious brain in order to make that decision. But in most situations, that's not the case. And for most of us, we are not experts and we have not seen enough patterns in order to make a good decision and good, quick, instantaneous decision, especially. So what is the best solution for this? Well, that's checklists. Checklists are incredibly, incredibly important for anyone, but especially an investor. There are many investors that use this type of technique. One of the most famous ones is Monish Pobrai. He always speaks about how these checklists are actually save a lot of the errors that he might have made, and that's very, really impressive. So what are these checklists? Well, these checklists are something very simple. They are just a collection of questions that, well, investors need to ask themselves at the end of the analysis and before they make an actual decision. So what kind of questions does this checklist needs to have? Well, those are going to be divided into 4 main categories. So let's go and start with the first one, which is the reflection on our own errors or on errors of other investors. I don't think I need to really say that much about this point because it all seems to be very logical how much our past errors and errors of other investors are important to our own decision making. So for example, if we, for example, had made an error of investing into our company because the fundamentals were really, really good, and so we didn't even bother to actually, look at how the company works and what were the other intangible assets and intangible qualities of the company, then that might be a very, very big error that we should probably avoid in the future. So asking yourself a question along the lines of, am I investing in this company specifically because of the good fundamentals, or am I investing it because it's a good business and it has good fundamentals? That kind of question can actually really make us more clear about the decision that we are making. And sometimes we are just so excited to make an investment that we just simply forget that that can actually affect us, and this can actually safeguard us from that. The second category is the reflection on our biases. As we have seen previously, our brains are very, very emotional, and especially when we make a big decision or something that involves money, we tend to get emotional. And that's not something bad. It simply means that we need to be more careful when we actually do make those decisions. So what should we be looking for the bias? Well, we'll need to look for the bias simply because it's essential that we understand which kind of biases we have during the decision making. So if we understand the bias, that means that the influence that it has over us all of a sudden disappears. We know we have it, we know that it's there, but we can actually act rationally and not really being influenced by that bias all that much. So there's a huge list of biases. I'm going to put some of them on the screen right now, but this is definitely not just the definitive list of all the biases you should be looking for. There are many other ones, And it's really up to the investor himself to look out for the biases that he knows he might be subjective to, and just trying to limit their effect on him. The third category is looking at the situations from a different perspective. In the investment world, this is essential because, as I've spoken recently about the biases, one of the most prevalent bias in investing is the affirmation bias. So let's imagine a situation where you had a fantastic idea to buy a stock. It looks really solid, it has great fundamentals, it's a pretty good company, and so all throughout the analysis that you're making, you're going to keep on just looking for the reasons to buy this stock and to go long for it. The problem with that is, in the most cases, we actually completely disregard all the bad things about that company and about that stock, and that basically gives us a lot of room of error that we don't even realize we actually have. So if, for example, we look at the reasons to go short on that stock, we can actually find many reasons why we actually shouldn't buy that stock. And as it turns out, we actually might be making a wrong decision. And the fourth one is probably one of the most important ones, and that's the organization of our thoughts. So what I mean by that? Well, we have all made the decision, and then that decision just has so many variables. It's just too much. And we as human beings, we are very bad at actually having to put the exact weight on every single variable. So for example, if we have a decision with 4 variables, 2 of which are very important and 2 of which are just nothing compared to the previous 2, well, we're probably going to give them 25% anyway, because that's how our brains work. So in order to avoid that, we can actually make a few questions that are actually specifically targeting the areas of the investment that we want to make that are super important for that investment to be successful. Now, it's very important to look at all the variables, but it's even more important to pick up the most essential things from all of the variables that we actually have. So looking at concrete example, we can see that there are many investors that actually do use some kind of a checklist in order to organize their thoughts. One of the greatest examples is probably Phil Fisher. He was one of the Warren Buffett's greatest mentors, and one of the things that he did was he had a 15-point list. On that list, he made questions. All of those questions had one specific thing in mind: to highlight a specific area of business that was essential to be good. If that business wasn't as great in one of those points, then that investment decision was pretty much made for him. So what that did was, instead of looking at 100,000 different variables, all he needed to do was to look for 15 areas of the business that he thought to be most important. So that pretty much makes it all. So this is the value of checklists. They're very important because not only do they keep us in check, but they also help us organize the thoughts and actually let us not commit the same mistakes that we did over the past. So let me know if you're actually going to make a checklist. I think this is a great thing to any investor, whether he is a value investor or even a trader. I think it's essential to be in control of not only our past mistakes, but our own selves. I think it's essential to understand how we make decisions. And if we have a system to making those decisions, our errors are going to be far less than way before. So thank you for watching the video. I hope you enjoyed it. Make sure to leave a like and subscribe, and see you next time.